All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, December 17th. We are nearing the end of the year. It's very exciting. We're going to do a little quick check-in on design tasks remaining for Backdrop CMS. The next release of Backdrop is Backdrop 1.3, which will be out on January 15th. That is a user experience, user interface related release, and we have a very long list of issues tagged with a 1.3.0 milestone on GitHub that we would love to see get in to that release. A lot of them are really tiny, a lot of them are novice, a couple of them are doozies, but it's definitely the kind of thing that if you only have 5 or 10 minutes and want to work on something, there's a handful in there that would be good for that. I also know there are a bunch of pull requests in the queue waiting for review, so if you are interested in doing a review of seeing how the user experience might be improved in 1.3, it might also be good to grab some patches, apply them, and weigh in on the review of those new changes as well. So that would help us get those done. Of the doozies that are in there, we have a very long list of layout module follow-ups, as well as CK Editor and some of the other modules that we introduced in the 1.x lifecycle of Backdrop, that we got them in because they were kind of a minimum viable product, but we knew there were some user interface issues that we were leaving for later. I would love to get as many of those fixed up as possible. I'm not sure there's been a lot of progress on the more complicated things associated with layouts that maybe aren't necessarily user interface related, but user experience related. And I think that that's fine. These are things that we can, of course, put in at any time. I was kind of hoping we would get this huge, like, wow, the product is easier to use at 1.3, but I think what is just going to be a bunch of little cleanup where first impressions will be less weird for people, although maybe not significantly different, which is fine. I mean, that's in line with our goals. We don't want to change too much, so that's good. We also have an increasing need for a new front-end design or theme for people to use on Backdrop. So if you have a website and you don't have a designer and you want to just kind of ship with something out of the box, Backdrop right now doesn't have anything really great for that. Bartik is the only front-end theme that's in there, and it's not super ready for prime time. I mean, your site's going to look exactly like every other Drupal site out there if you use that. We're hoping to get something that's a little different for Backdrop. We'll obviously try and change the colors by 1.3, but that's still not significantly different. I mean, it won't look like a Drupal site, look like a Backdrop site, but it'll still look the same. But if we could get something that's a little more bootstrappy and kind of less stylized, but cleaner and more functional, I think that would be ideal and something people could use as a valid base theme. So later in the future, they just want to add another theme that extends the theme that's in there. It would be great if we had a good candidate for that as opposed to what's in there now, which most people just kind of throw it out and start over. So that we want to put on the timeline for Backdrop 1.4. And I think we've got a couple of approaches to that. There are a couple of themes in Contrib which people have been using that might be good candidates. I also could see like a simplified version of something that's in Contrib, like taking a look at something like Radix and saying, you know, this does too much. It's great as a Contrib theme. If we're going to put it in core, we need it to do less, and trying to figure out how to do that. Or if somebody has another theme that they want to do the same thing, kind of pare it down a little bit, try and figure out how to make it more of an 80% use case kind of thing, that would be great too. So just kind of plant that seed. We want to get that in by 1.4, which is May 15th, so that people can start using this thing for real, which would be great. If you are interested in looking at issues for Backdrop that are specifically related to design or needing design feedback, there's a tag for that. It's called Audience Design. So if you have an idea to design but don't really want to write any code, we still need your help. We've got a tag that will help you find the issues that are most relevant to those things right now. Hopefully we'll do a pretty good job of tagging those as they come in. All right, so backdropcms.org, our flagship website, has a limited range of functionality right now. We're obviously going to be expanding that over time. By January 1st, we were hoping to let people create an account and log in to that website. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we did a pretty thorough review of the user account fields that we wanted to get on there before we start allowing people to log in, because we don't want people to have to come back later and say, oh, there's 500 fields here I missed. Now, obviously, we're going to be adding some things as time goes on, but we want to get as close as we could initially, because we figured the initial batch of people signing up would probably be our biggest influx of data. So we compared a couple of different websites, Drupal, WordPress, other things, to try and figure out what information was collected that we might find useful. We created a list, and then I started building out what all of those fields were. I randomly emailed Darius a link on like a Sunday night or something, and he produced this amazing design like within a day or two. I couldn't believe it. So thank you very much, Darius. We were like, I can make that pretty. And I went ahead and filled out my own user account on backdropcms.org. I think I sent a couple other of you links to profile pages. Nate, I filled yours out too, so any of the information you see on there might not be stuff you want. Wes, I'm not sure. I haven't seen your profile page, but we should definitely take a look. There are a couple of things on there that are notable. One thing that I think we should point out is that there's a banner image, which I actually really love. I don't know if this will work, if you guys can see this tab. Let's see.
How do we create an account or a profile?
I think you already have an account, but most people, it's turned off right now because we don't want it ready yet. But if you want to create an account, like to help us test this, just send an email or tweet or IRC or just whatever, and I'll create an account and send you an invite, and then you can log in and start playing with it.
Yeah.
And I think you might have one already, so I would try a password reset, but if not, we can definitely set that up.
Cool.
And then, yeah, the banner image is my favorite part because it does, like, this website by itself is very kind of blank slate. It's black and white and gray, and we did that intentionally, but this kind of gives people who have a page, like, a place to set their own personality. Like, yeah, you can put your own picture up or avatar or whatever, but this is a different, it's like much bigger, I don't know, I think it looks amazing. We talked about it last week, I think, in the meeting, and everybody was like, yes, good idea, let's do it. And so I was so excited, I had to run off and build it. Wes is like, I'm excited, I want to build it. I'm like, no, I'm going to build it. So I built it. I think it's pretty good. It probably needs a little like CSS tweaking for responsiveness, but it's pretty close. And yeah, I think that there's a couple of, there's some feedback Darius sent too with like a couple of little things that I missed that I haven't gone back and made any changes to. But I still think that it's so close. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you got most of it. It was just small design or anything.
Yeah, like you know, those things definitely don't line up, like the logo and the white box and stuff. But yeah, Nate noticed that right away too. I'm like, look at how good it looks, and he's like, I'm pretty sure these things are supposed to line up, and I'm like, oh, yes, they are. But yeah, so I love it. One thing, Darius, you didn't see, I threw the social media links in there on the left-hand side. I just kind of guessed at where to put them. But
yeah.
We can move them around.
I think it's good having them. I'm not sure I like those particular ones. Like
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, we can change them.
Yeah, like I would just take the outer box.
Okay.
Below the
Yeah, we can do that. This
We're
is
using
just the default.
Font Awesome. We might just keep the outer box and use the version of the social mark that is just the icon, because then rounded corners kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And that would keep them square, and it would be more like the rest of the site.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I just
works
threw
too.
in these links because I used them somewhere else, so I didn't have to go to Font Awesome and like pick the icons. But this is a zero thought.
Does it need a subhead?
What was that?
Do you think it needs a subhead, or is it okay if they just float?
I think people will know what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, we could add a subhead if you thought it looked better.
I think it's okay. I was just wondering what you guys thought.
Maybe they could like go closer to your picture, and then because it's kind of like picture, label, value, then icons, and I don't know, it might look good next to the photo.
Maybe
it's not a big deal either way, but I was just wondering because everything else has a subhead.
Okay, well we can move them around. I just kind of threw them on there, so yeah, we can change them, fix them, whatever. But
I'm glad you put that in there because I didn't really thought about doing the sidewalk.
So there's only two things I think that are currently missing from the user profile page that I want to add. Well, there's three, but two that are urgent. One of them is asking people their country of origin, and I wanted to port the countries module from Drupal 7 because it has like that massive country list, and it'll do some validation on that, which I think will be nice. And then also languages spoken. So if people, their primary language isn't English or any language that they speak that isn't English, we can ask that as well. And other than that, I think the information we're collecting about people will be complete, which is great. There's one other thing that we need to add to long-term, which is the thing that Drupal does where it lets you list your mentors, which I think is a great community building tool. But that we just have to add the references module on there and allow people to reference other people. But because there aren't any people on the website, that seemed less urgent. Like we could probably open this up with all the information we needed to collect, and then once we start having people create accounts, then people can start referencing other people. But right now it's like, I really want to reference someone that doesn't exist. Less urgent. And then Darius, I'm not sure if you looked at the way that Drupal.org does that now, but they show like a little grid of profile pictures for mentors. So on one person's profile page, it's like, here's all the headshots of all the people who I've listed as mentors, which I thought was pretty cute. So we can look at that and find our own way to do the same kind of thing where it shows your micro community on your page.
I haven't seen the new Drupal.org site.
Yeah, they've done a lot of like little incremental changes, and it's starting to be kind of different, which is, I don't know. I think it's
a lot different now.
And so I think that we might need to put a little thought into like the right way to display mentors. So we can collect the data first, but then we should figure out like, you know, is this just a little block with your own sidebar? Do we want to make it, you know, a main page thing, or I don't know. But so we can think about that once we have data to display.
Cool.
Okay, so as I was working on this page, like the front end is really easy. The back end, like trying to let people edit this, was where I ran into some problems. The first thing I thought was, well, we'll just take our front end theme and display the edit form in the front end theme, and then we'll clean it up a little bit. But our front end theme doesn't have formatting for anything like any of the input text boxes or any of that. All of that beautiful work we did on Backdrop, we did only on the 7 theme. And so in order for our front-end theme to take advantage of any of that, we would need to re-implement a lot of those styles, which I think we could definitely do. I mean, especially because our front-end theme on backdropcms.org is a little bit different than the 7 style anyway, with things like form buttons and all of that. But it just started to look like a kind of a big undertaking, and I was like, I'm not sure we should do this. Maybe what we should do is just give people access to the back-end theme that's already pretty. And then I turned that on, and I looked at the way that felt, and that was also, I think, not the right experience, because people end up leaving the site, they lose their navigation, they lose their the context of where they are. Like the breadcrumb just says home, and it just was like, this is not the right solution. We need to make our front end theme support forms, and this is a problem we're also going to face as soon as people start editing their projects and creating showcase sites and all the other things we want to let them do on our site. So I think it might be good to kind of say, okay, holistically, let's just make this front end theme work for our back end operations, and that way we can allow anyone to edit anything, and we don't have to worry about what it's going to look like. And so obviously the form fields are one. The buttons, I would love it if we could get the like red, green tricks that we have on the backend theme, where when you're editing a form, one of them, or blue or whatever color it is like, this is the button you should click. I would love if we could get that on the front end of our site, just because that's something that I think makes the experience so much better for editing things in Backdrop. And then beyond that, just making sure that the form is not completely unruly with giant text areas that span like 100% of your page width and all of that stuff. Which, though sometimes handy, is, I don't know, feels like...
get as much mileage out of that stuff, though. You know, there's a lot of time put into it.
So I don't know the best process for this, what I was kind of thinking we do is just I go, oh, Wes, would you please fix it? And then Wes would fix it. And then maybe, Darius, we could show it to you and be like, what do you think? Is it close? And then you'd be like, yeah, it's good enough. And then we can kind of ship it. And then if any changes need to happen along the way, we can adjust rather than having to go through a whole like design process of the edit form. Do you think that sounds reasonable?
That's what I prefer. I would rather just get something done and then adjust, because I don't think it's going to be so designed that doing the design up front is really going to be worth doing.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like making a good form, and you know, I don't think it's going to be all that crazy.
Okay. Let's do that then. I think that'll also reduce the amount of time you have to worry about it, Darius, where we can just be like, here's a form, what can we make better? And you can point at a couple things and we can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas right now it's like everything can be better. Just, yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, this is looking really great. I think as soon as we get that edit form cleaned up, we can let people start, right now we can let people create accounts if we wanted to, but I think we should do a newsletter mailing maybe around the beginning of the year that says a whole bunch of stuff that's going on with Backdrop, like, yes, you can log in, you can create an account. We've got some news about PHP 7 support. We want to put another call for contributors or maybe donors or whatever else it is we want to tell people about using Gitter, I don't know, whatever it is. We need to send a newsletter. We haven't done that in a long time, and I think this would be a good thing to put in there. So if we want to kind of do a little beta people can sign up thing where we tell you guys in the developer meeting about it, and then a couple weeks later we send the newsletter and actually let people sign up, I think that would be fine. Yay! All right, and then after people start signing up for the website, we can allow them to do other things like post their websites in a showcase, and that's going to require some design. I'm not sure how we want to do that, if we should maybe go through some examples of sites that do that really well. Darius, you probably already have a mental library of these are sites that do, profile showcasey type things.
It's always good to look, but that stuff changes so much, though,
Yeah.
You have to see, trending and what works.
I don't know what Drupal.org looks like. I haven't been there in a while, but that might also be good to keep an eye on, or look at how WordPress does it, see what our competition is up to, see if there's get a newer, hipper version of what all the cool kids are doing. And then I think that's the next thing we have in terms of major design needed on our site is getting that showcase done. And I don't know that we need to set any timelines for that yet. I think we should.
The showcase could also follow one of the design patterns we have already, like the themes one.
Yeah.
That can work, right?
Yeah. Okay.
At least for the landing page, or the view. The interior page may be different, but.
Okay, that's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what I was going to say is that we should probably focus on getting the profile stuff done first, and then once we have that open, then we can, worry about designs too, because I think there's going to be a little more follow-up design work on edit forms and stuff like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited that this is coming along so well. All right. Yes, other things we want to do. We've got some follow-ups for the designs we already have for modules, themes, and layouts, where we just have to do some development on the backdropcms.org site so people can actually get the data that we have designed to display. And I think that's also starting to become a little bit more urgent because we are actually getting a really nice, robust collection of modules and themes up there. And so now we have to start building better ways for people to search and find the ones they're looking for. Originally, you're like, we only have 20. We don't need to worry about that. We don't need facets or filters. But now it's like, oh, we have a lot. We need to actually let people have the tools they need to find what they want. So I think that's probably where I'm going to focus next, is on trying to build some of that views integration and other fields that we need on data to build the filters. So
we've got the designs though, right? For all that stuff?
We still have the designs, and I think that they're, the more we can build to make the website true to those designs, the better it'll be. Okay, other tab, there we go. Okay, back to swag. We have adorable t-shirts, we have adorable hoodies, we have stickers. Oh, Wes, I need to throw stickers in the mail to you, but lots of good stuff for distributing. Slides, we have Backdrop themed slides in the Backdrop Ops repository. If anybody is giving a talk on Backdrop anywhere and doesn't want to write their own, you can definitely recycle our open source talks, which are in there. And if anyone gives a talk that they want to give back, we would love to have more things for people to talk about in there. Online branding assets. I created an issue on the backdropcms.org queue for creating Facebook, Twitter stuff. We talked about this when we were talking about the header image on the profile page too, is that if we can come up with a really good Backdrop branding header image, that's something we could use as like the default image on your user profile page, so that if you don't have an image for yourself yet, we can kind of still have that design element there, giving that page some color and some character until you put up your own. We don't have one yet, but when we get one,
I'll work on something. Maybe even just like, what I did for BadCam 2013 with like those sunsets and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like color washes, like something simple,
Yep.
Texture, graphic.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Cool.
And then we have, there's like kind of a bigger meta issue here around marketing as well that we had for the last 2 years basically been ignoring because nobody in our group really had super marketing skills. But a whole bunch of people have brought it to our attention recently that we need to do marketing even if it's not our skill set. So last week we put out a call in our developer meeting and put out some tweets about trying to get some people who are interested and skilled at marketing to help us out. And we've got a couple of great people in our community now who have these skills and who have volunteered to step up and do some of the more marketing-y stuff, like paying attention to our Google Analytics account and doing some tweeting and writing some blog posts. And it is going to be so much better to have people helping us out in areas where we are not strong. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think this background image for social media is kind of associated with that, like, oh, we don't know how to do branding and marketing, and hopefully we'll get that solved now that we have people thinking about it too. So Darius, if you want to give us a first image that would help, that would be great. We can hand that over to all of our social media folks and bloggers and whatever, and kind of get everybody on board with branding assets. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So bigger picture with Backdrop the software, we also wanted to create a human interface guidelines document so that we can explain patterns that happen around the software and when they should be used and why, to help not only core be consistent about how it lets you access things around the site, but also to help contrib know when to use which things. It happens a lot in Drupal where people find one element that's intended for one use and they repurpose it for a whole bunch of other things because it saves space on the page, or they just really like the way that thing works, not understanding that it's supposed to communicate something in particular to the user, and that creates for a less powerful user experience, less consistent, more disjointed. It would be great if we could get all this documented. We have a rough start on our GitHub, in a GitHub repository that hasn't gotten a lot of attention for a while, but it is starting to become more important, especially now as we have more contrib projects evolving and being created specifically for Backdrop, which is great. Also, as we're continuing to port modules from Drupal to Backdrop, especially modules that used to use things like CTools plugins for creating exportables. Every time one of those needs to be built in Backdrop, it needs to have a user interface built. And so, whereas before you could just define, this is the page I want an interface on, and CTools would provide a user interface for editing, deleting, exporting that thing. Now we've got to build one. That means we're going to have more module developers thinking about, how do I build an interface, and having some documents that's like, this is how you build an interface, and these are the patterns that you use when you're trying to do these things, and this is the terminology that you use when you're trying to express to people that this is configuration versus content. I think having this document completed is going to be increasingly more important. So if anybody is super interested in studying what we have, writing it down, and then trying to figure out some rules around what's good and what's bad about that, how to clean up what we have, and just kind of make a nice paved road for new people to follow, that would be fantastic. We had someone who was really interested in it a year ago, and then they got busy. Also, people working in India are like 12 hours opposite from us, which makes it really hard to collaborate. But anyone who wants to work on that at any time of day, we would really appreciate it. So there is an issue, looks like it's issue 390 in the queue about getting progress made on that one. And that's all I have for today's meeting, but we should open it up and see if anyone has anything we should talk about, or questions or discuss, or anything else related to design for Backdrop.
Maybe sort of tangential. We're doing a training, right? And
yeah.
January. So yeah, maybe we could start thinking about what we want to do there, and maybe how we can incorporate maybe even some design things, or layout talk.
Yeah, I think that would be really great. So Darius and I are doing a full day training this year at Sand Camp in February on Backdrop. And so I think it would be great if we did kind of a half a day on basic site setup, and then a half a day on like design and theme. And maybe it would be good to spend some of that time just kind of talking about things you need to think about when approaching design. And then
that would be cool.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people who are like, I just want a website, that's kind of their biggest problem, is like, how do you figure out your brand and your identity and what makes you you? And if we're going to try and give them a generic tool for building a website, we're going to have to help answer some of those questions as well.
Yeah.
And then if we could spend the end of the day being like, okay, now that you have an idea of what you want your design to be, here are some tips that'll help you implement it, and just kind of get into some quick theming, like, how to change your colors, how to add a basic style sheet versus how to change some markup, like a simple theme override, template override, and then maybe one pre-process function, and then stop before we get too deep. It's only one day. They're going to be tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to plant that seed.
If you have any ideas about like if we should start creating resources for that, I can definitely work on.
Yeah, maybe we could start like a shared slide thing.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Great.
Andy had a question that maybe isn't necessarily related to core, but oh, here we go. Our answer. Anyway, I'm just going to read this out loud since you guys are having a whole conversation. So Andy's question is, when you're looking at creating a theme with layout and design, which project should be responsible for the width of a page? Like, we have layouts that are responsive, and we have themes that can color things, but like the actual size of the page you're viewing, it's arbitrary. Like, does that belong to the layout that controls where the breakpoints are, or does that responsibility of the theme, which can say like something bleeds the entire page, or maybe it doesn't? And Wes says that it's the theme's responsibility, since that happens site-wide, as opposed to the layout's responsibility, which can be different from one page to the next. But yeah, that's kind of how I think too. Like, I feel like the theme should be responsible for the maximum width, and all of the layouts should say this is 100% of the width set by the theme, which is like the bounding element. That's how I've done it anyway, or not. And then if you have a layout that needs to take control of the whole page, then it needs to like specifically override whatever the theme's doing. But because the theme is supposed to have the last say, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in general, your layout shouldn't ever be able to override what your theme does, because your theme themes the layouts. Yeah, layouts are always 100% wide, and the theme sets what that 100% is. Is that 100% of the browser? Is it 960 pixels? Is it 1440? That's your theme's job. And then that way you can have one layout on one theme that's like 960, but that same layout on another theme could be 100% of the page, but it's all relative.
Yeah, and this is only the case for the layouts that come with core. At least they're all 100% width, but I don't think Radix works in the same way. Like, I don't know. Even though we might say that it's 100% width, I think that at least core should always be 100% width, but contrib, it's, you know, it could vary, because it's obviously, you can put it in either location.
Yeah, I think Radix does work that way too. The Radix theme sets the max width, and then Radix layouts are, it's just a grid system where they're like, this is a 12:6 or a 9:4, whatever, to divide that 100% that's set in the theme into this smaller.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and depending on your use cases, Andy, you're probably going to find some places where you need to do custom stuff. Like, this is not always going to fit. I have plenty of sites where it's like, except for this one page. Right? But I usually do that in the theme, where it's like, except for in this one page, we're going to make, you know, this a different size.
I had a question about the Views UI stuff that I ended up stumbling into. Is basically, it feels like we need to have something where it's like, okay, just make what we have responsive, but which was originally what I was going to try to do. I was like, I'm going to do something quick and dirty to just like get something into the next release.
Yep.
But then, like, the more I stared at the UI, I was like, like, there are just so many things that are just arbitrary and crap, and I want to fix them. But then, like, the more I got into that thought, it was like, oh my god, this is like a total rat's nest of like not rat's nest, but like a rabbit hole is what I mean. Like, like once you start touching it, it's like, holy cow. Like, so anyway, the question was if that's what you two are feeling, and then is it worth doing or is it plausible to do a Views UI module alternative in contrib, just to like try things out, see how it goes. Maybe it gets into core. Maybe we just learn some things. You know, that kind of whatever.
Yes. So in general, my feeling is less is more. Like, if you can just do kind of a hack to make it responsive, that's better than what we have now, and we should just put it in. And if, like, as you know, anything in Backdrop or Drupal, like, there's always a rabbit hole at the end of every project. You know, at some point it might just be easier to throw it out and start over, and if you want to do that as an alternative Views UI module, that's why Views UI is a separate module, right? You can turn it off, you can turn yours on, and even if it's the same name, right, just take the one that's there, throw it out so that you don't get a conflict, turn it on, and just see how much you can do or how little you can do. I don't know, like, to make it what you want. We definitely can evaluate it that way and decide to swap one out for the other one.
Hey, so I've been looking at this, and I think that, yeah, I think we should probably do a contrib module to begin with. When Views is building the admin interface, it actually has a hook that allows other modules to alter it. So what we can actually do is, perhaps I was thinking about creating a Views UI UX module that essentially rearranges all of the elements on the Views UI admin page just to begin with. and I could definitely use help on that if someone wants to help me with it.
I can help with front-endy stuff, but as far as
yeah,
some of the more PHP stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but I definitely think that this should sort of be an initiative for us, where we maybe try to make the thing responsive for the time being.
Yeah.
Where and I think I have some ideas for that, just by collapsing the columns down. Then just sort of do a sort of contrib module to do as much as possible by just editing the current thing. But then obviously once we sort of have an idea of where we're going, then actually merging it into core.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah, so I would like to, and maybe even merge into core, not for this January release, but for the following quarterly release, if we can get everyone sort of agreement on it.
Yeah.
But but that's going to obviously depend on how people, if we can get everyone on board with how it sort of should work.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I would love it if we could get the hack in to make it responsive by the January release, and then we can kind of take our time and figure out, like, okay, we got to do this again. What do we want it to do? Like, what makes the most sense for getting it reorganized?
Yeah, if no one else has started the hack version just to make it responsive, I can do that. Might be able to knock it out today, maybe, depending on how long it takes.
That'd be great. Okay. Yeah, we could definitely, so Andy just said that you can just kind of merge all the stuff that's in there and then rebuild the page. We could definitely do that. I mean, the Views UI is a separate module that adds all of that stuff. We can, like Mike says, we can either modify that or we could just completely replace it. And I would totally be fine if we were looking at 1.4 completely replacing it, as long as we knew what we were going to replace it with. I feel like right now we just don't have a clear vision of what that is, and a lot of the work that Wes is doing and a lot of the work that Mike's doing will help us figure out what that is. But just so we can get it responsive for 1.3, knowing that we're going to replace it with something better in 1.4, 1.5, or however long it takes us to get it done, I think that's fine. My dad always used to say, better is the enemy of done. So first we make it done, and then we make it better. Don't ever try and make it better before it's done, and it'll never get done.
Like my website.
Like every website ever, really.
I really love it. And I've been getting feedback, and it's been pretty great. And things you would never think of, until people actually use it. Like, oh, makes sense.
All right, does anyone have anything else we should talk about? If not, we should wrap, and we will commence again in 15 minutes for our developer check-in meeting.
Cool.
All right, thanks everybody for joining.
That's a whole lot. Thank you so much for checking in.
All right, bye guys.
Cheerio.